Siberia, the eastern part of Russia, a vast region that stretches from the Ural Mountains to the Pacific Ocean. How vast? Siberia alone covers about 13 million square kilometres, larger than the entire United States and Europe combined. And yet, what do we really know about this land? For most of the world, it's the coldest place on Earth. A synonym for endless forests and frozen emptiness. And yes, those things exist. But in reality, it is far more than that. It's a continent inside a country. Lakes so deep they hold a fifth of Earth's fresh water. Snow-capped mountains, alpine meadows, smoking volcanoes, hissing geysers, remote islands surrounded by raging waves of the Pacific. And glaciers that glitter under the sun. Despite harsh conditions, people still live here. Indigenous hunters, nomads with reindeer. But also, whole cities, concrete and glass, are built on permafrost. And the largest of them is Yakutsk, the coldest major city on Earth. On paper, that fact alone should make it inhospitable. In winter, the mercury plunges to -50, -60 degrees Celsius. At that point, cold becomes something else entirely. When the temperature drops, Yakutsk disappears beneath a veil of fog. Low temperatures squeeze moisture from the air, cloaking the streets in a dense, ghostly shroud. Above it all, the sun hangs low on the horizon, even at noon. It never fully rises, never fully warms. And yet, almost 300,000 people call this frozen place their home. From above, the city looks patched together. Concrete blocks from the Soviet era, wooden houses, and new glass towers, misplaced fragments of Moscow. Houses here are built on stilts. It's not a stylistic choice. The ground beneath is permanently frozen. But Yakutsk isn't the coldest place in Siberia, not even close. That title belongs to Oymyakon, known as the Pole of Cold. It has recorded temperatures as low as -71 degrees Celsius, the coldest ever recorded outside Antarctica. Yakutsk feels brutal. Oymyakon redefines the word. The village lies in a valley where icy winds settle and stay, trapped by mountains that block circulation. Oymyakon's population numbers less than 1,000, families that have endured here for generations, What might appear unbearable for them has become routine. Life continues, shaped by necessity rather than choice. And beneath this frozen hell lie hidden treasures, diamonds. Yakutia sits at the heart of one of the richest mining regions on the planet. Mirny is the epicenter. The first impression, just rows of Soviet apartment blocks and warehouses. Yet the town stands on the edge of abyss. A hole, vast, circular, bottomless, the mere diamond mine. Nearly a kilometre deep, more than a kilometre wide. One of the largest ever dug by human hands. The stones pulled from here didn't stay. They travelled the world, glittering on velvet displays in Paris and New York. By 2001, the pit was exhausted. And extraction moved underground, leaving behind an enormous wound. Yakutsk sits on the frozen banks of the Lena River. A massive artery cutting through the heart of Siberia. A few hundred kilometres downstream, nature carved a masterpiece in stone. Lena pillars. They look almost too perfect, too symmetrical. Gigantic limestone spires, some shaped like needles, some like columns. Sculpted over 500 million years during the Cambrian. Some reach more than 100 metres into the sky. Their surfaces are streaked and fractured, layered with sedimentary lines. From a distance, they look like a city built by a forgotten civilization. Up close, the scale is staggering. One feels impossibly small in their shadow. Each pillar is a vertical timeline, a record of changing seas, shifting climates, and ancient ecosystems. They exist for their own reasons, shaped by forces so vast that our brief lives feel like nothing. There are few roads in this part of Siberia. Building them is hard. Keeping them alive is harder. The Kolyma Highway is one of the few, more than 2,000 kilometres of gravel, dust and emptiness. Locals call it the Road of Bones. And that name isn't just poetry. The highway was built by prisoners during Stalin's reign. Thousands died from cold and hunger in the work camps scattered along the route. Their bodies, it is said, are buried in the road itself. The bones became part of the foundation. Along the way, settlements appear and vanish, some still alive, others silent. Like the road itself, Khanty-mansiysk was also built in the 1940s by prisoners of the gulag. A coal mining town tucked deep into the mountains. At its height, Khanty-mansiysk held more than 10,000 people, existing solely because the state demanded it. When the Soviet Union collapsed, subsidies dried up. The coal mines were no longer profitable. In 1996, an explosion in one of the shafts killed 6 miners. That was the end. The government shut the mines. Families were told to leave. And by the early 2000s, Khanty-mansiysk became a ghost. The Kolyma Highway pushes further east until it meets the sea. At the end of the Road of Bones stands Magadan. The city may look ordinary. Apartment blocks, streets laid out in grids. A port facing the cold waters of the Sea of Yakutsk. But Magadan carries a weight that ordinary cities do not. For decades, it was the gateway to the gulag. Ships arrived here from Vladivostok and other ports, carrying prisoners sentenced to hard labour. From Magadan, they were dispersed into the Kolyma camps. Thousands died in the process, starved, beaten, frozen, while trying to extract the resources that fueled the Soviet state. On a bluff overlooking the city rises the Mask of Sorrow. A massive monument erected in the 1990s. It is one of the few official acknowledgements of the suffering that shaped this land. Beyond Magadan, roads disappear altogether. Siberia gives way to a different frontier. At the farthest edge of Russia, where the continent leans into the Pacific, lies Chukotka. Harsh tundra, winters that last most of the year, summers that flash by in weeks. Few places on Earth feel as remote. In the Soviet years, the land became a frontier of extraction. Workers were flown in, camps were built, and when the mines closed, the towns were left behind. Today, abandoned settlements lie scattered across the region. Rows of empty barracks, rusting machinery. Anadyr, the capital, is an exception. Brightly painted apartment blocks stand against the endless tundra. But behind the colour lies the same reality. Isolation, expensive supplies flown in by plane, a life shaped by distance. Chukotka is the end of the road, or perhaps the beginning of another one. Pevek, the northernmost city in Russia, rises from the coast of the East Siberian Sea. At its Soviet peak, about 25,000 people lived here. Now fewer than 5,000 remain. But Pevek is not just a relic of Soviet industry. It has become an important stop on the northern sea route. The Arctic shipping lane that stretches from Murmansk to Vladivostok. With ice receding each summer, more ships now pass through these waters, cutting weeks off the journey between Europe and Asia. Pevek's port, once forgotten, is now strategic. Tankers and cargo vessels dock here, resupplying, waiting for icebreakers to clear the way. Leaving Chukotka behind, the tundra gives way to mountains. Kamchatka sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, a restless seam where tectonic plates grind. More than 300 volcanoes rise from the land, 29 of them still active. The most imposing of them all is Kluchevskaya Sopka. A perfect cone more than 4,700 meters high. It has erupted dozens of times in recorded history, throwing ash plumes high into the stratosphere. And then there is the Valley of Geysers. Accessible only by helicopter, it is one of the largest geothermal fields on Earth. Jets of boiling water blast skyward, steam clouds rise from the Earth. Mud pots bubble and spit. Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, the capital, sits in Avacha Bay, embraced by volcanic cones on all sides. Life here is tied to the sea. Fishing fleets fill the harbour, their decks stacked with crab pots and nets. And sharing that harbour are the real locals, stellar sea lions. They haul themselves onto breakwaters and piers, massive and loud, barking at one another. Each year, salmon surge upriver from the Pacific, driven by instinct to return to the streams where they were born. The rivers of Kamchatka run thick with them, the water seeming to boil as the fish push upstream. Brown bears wade into the current, standing still as the salmon swarm past their legs. With a quick swipe, a fish is airborne, clamped in jaws, devoured on the spot. bears gorge until the season ends, until their bodies are fat enough to endure the long Arctic winter. From Kamchatka, the land fractures into the sea. These are the Kurils, 56 islands stretched across 1,300 kilometers between Russia and Japan. They exist because of collision. Here the Pacific plate dives beneath the Okhotsk plate, grinding and pushing magma upward. The result is a line of volcanoes, smoking, erupting, reshaping the land in real time. On Onikotan Island lies a colossal caldera of Krenitsin. Inside it, a lake fills the crater, and in the middle of that lake rises a perfect volcanic cone. It is a landscape that seems imagined, almost impossible, yet it is real, sculpted by fire and water in violent succession. Farther north, near Paramusha Island, smoulders Ebeko. Its eruptions are not cataclysmic, but persistent. For humans, survival on the Kuril Islands has always been more complicated. Supply ships come when the weather allows, but storms often leave communities cut off for weeks. Yet for those who endure, the Kurils are magnificent, untamed, unpredictable, and beautiful in their severity. To the west, Sakhalin stretches along the Pacific coast, almost 1,000 kilometers of ridges, rivers, and taiga. In the 19th century, Russia and Japan vied for control, dividing the island between them, swapping territories, redrawing maps. After World War II, the Soviets retook the southern part, expelling the Japanese settlers and reshaping towns and economy. The capital, Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk, is a Soviet city layered over older Japanese streets. And just beyond the city, the Gorny Vozduk ski resort climbs into the mountains. Offering slopes with sweeping views over the island. Sakhalin has beauty, often stark, sometimes haunting. None more so than the Anova Lighthouse. Built by the Japanese in 1939 on a lonely rock at the island's southern tip, for decades it was manned by keepers who lived in isolation. Later, the Soviets automated it with radioactive power cells. Today, abandoned, it stands as a monument to the edge of the world. Russia's Pacific window Vladivostok is closer to Tokyo than to Moscow, yet bound to the west by a line of iron rails. The name means rule the East. Sounds like ambition, maybe arrogance. The city was founded in 1860 when the Russian Empire decided it wanted a foothold on the Pacific. A port, a fortress, a symbol that the empire's reach did not end with Siberia. During the Soviet era, Vladivostok was closed to foreigners, a secret city hidden from the outside world. Only in 1992, after the Soviet Union fell, did the gates open again. The Golden Horn Bay curves into the city. Hills rise on every side, their slopes thick with apartment blocks. The Ruski Bridge, the longest cable-stayed bridge in the world, leaps toward Ruski Island, where students and researchers now fill what was once a military zone. Vladivostok lives in contradictions. European in architecture, Asian in flavour. Beyond Vladivostok, the land crashes straight into the Pacific. The shoreline folds in like torn paper. Pines cling to rock faces, their roots locked into cracks. Waves roll in blue and green, slamming against stone. And in between those cliffs, something unexpected. Strips of pale sand hidden between walls of granite, with water so clear it looks tropical. For many, it's surprising. Siberia is usually imagined as cold, landlocked, and frozen. Yet here in summer, the water warms enough to swim, sometimes brushing 22 degrees Celsius, just shy of the Mediterranean. The coves are small, often reachable only by footpaths or boats. No boardwalks or lifeguards, untouched wilderness. This coast shows another face of Siberia. It is not endless snowfields, but a mix of forested mountains and a sea that can be surprisingly mild. And beyond the beaches and coves, another landscape rises. Just inland begins the Ussuri taiga. Larch and pine mix with oak and cedar, a tangle of undergrowth alive with insects and birds. The taiga here hides ghosts. The Amur taiga, largest of all big cats, stalks these forests. Fewer than 600 remain in the wild, most of them here. Stripes blending with shadow, paws silent on the snow. It is a predator built for power and patience, and it rules this land like nothing else. Alongside the taiga, another survivor moves in the undergrowth, the Amur leopard. Smaller, more elusive, and far rarer. Once on the edge of extinction, with barely 30 left in the wild, it has made a fragile comeback under protection. Still, seeing one is nearly impossible. The forest hides them well, and they prefer it that way. Vladivostok is the last stop of the Trans-Siberian Railway, where tracks finally meet the sea. Nearly 9,300 kilometres of steel running across 2 continents. It is the longest railway line in the world, 7 time zones stretched out across forests and rivers. A journey not of hours, but of days. Construction started in 1891 under Tsar Alexander III, when Russia wanted to bind its empire together from west to east. Thousands of workers were sent into the wilderness. They cut through taiga, spanned rivers, laid track across permafrost. Progress was slow, brutal, costly, but by 1916, the line was complete. A ribbon of iron tying Europe to the Pacific. Without it, Russia's Far East would remain unreachable. With it, this remote region became part of the whole. The ride itself is an act of endurance. Moscow to Vladivostok takes a week if you don't step off, the days blurring into nights. Deep in the north of Zabaikalsky Krai, where Siberia is supposed to be endless taiga, the land suddenly fractures into something unexpected. The rolling dunes of Chara sands rise from the forest, glittering in the sun. Wind shapes ridges and hollows that look more like the Sahara. The dunes stretch for about 10 kilometres, surrounded on all sides by snow-capped peaks. Seen from above, the landscape is surreal. Taiga, mountains, and then this pocket of desert, as if dropped here by accident. Geology explains the riddle. During the last ice age, glaciers crushed rock into fine sediment. When the ice retreated, meltwater spread that sand across the plain. Over millennia, winds sculpted it into dunes. A fossil memory of the last glaciation. As we follow the Trans-Siberian to the west, the trees thin, the land opens. Step rolls, Buryatia begins. Domes of Orthodox churches stand beside golden roofs of temples. Buddhism, not orthodoxy, has deep roots in this land. The Datsans are its heart. Monasteries painted in red and green, their roofs curling against the sky. The Volginsky Datsan, founded in 1945, when Stalin was gone and religion clawed its way back into daylight, became the home of Buddhism in Russia. Prayer flags snap in the wind, colours slowly bleaching under the sun. Wooden wheels spin endlessly, sending whispered mantras skyward. And then in the centre of Ulan-Ude, another monument rises. The largest Lenin head in the world. 19 tons of bronze, 8 metres high. It is hard not to see it as another kind of temple. Another faith. Soviet socialism was its own religion. Two different systems of belief, two different kinds of devotion. Siberia has many faces: frozen tundra, endless taiga, jagged mountains. But nothing prepares you for Lake Baikal. The world's deepest, oldest and clearest freshwater lake, a body of water so immense it feels like an inland ocean. On first approach, it looks calm, almost serene. Blue stretching to the horizon, cliffs rising from the water. But beneath that glassy surface are chasms over 1,600 metres deep. Rifts formed by the earth itself tearing apart. In winter, the ice thickens, but it's not solid. Cracks run like lightning. Air bubbles are trapped under the surface. Cathedrals are built along the shore, caves where waves once broke against cliffs, now sealed in crystal. Inside, icicles hang like organ pipes. Light filters through blue and green, turning the walls into stained glass. Baikal is life too. Its waters are home to the Nerpa, the only freshwater seal species on Earth. Scientists still argue how it ended up here, stranded in this inland sea. Lake Baikal already feels like another planet, but even in a place this vast, there's a centre of gravity. Olkhon. It's the largest island on Baikal, about 70 kilometres long. Dusty tracks cut through rolling hills. Villages are small, wooden houses bleached grey by wind and sun. But Olkhon has a presence. You feel it before you even understand it. This is one of the sacred centres of the Buryatia people. At Cape Burhan, a jagged outcrop on the western shore, shamans once performed rituals. And today, prayer ribbons still flutter from poles. travellers stop here and fall silent without quite knowing why. Life on the islands is simple. There are no big hotels, no slick infrastructure, and cell service is patchy at best. But that's part of the appeal. Olkhon feels unfiltered. Stripped back, as if the rest of the world hasn't quite caught up. The Yamal Peninsula is a flat, endless stretch of tundra, locked in ice for most of the year. Temperatures here easily drop below -50°C, and the sun can vanish for months. Most people would call it unlivable. For the Nenets, it's home. There are nomads moving with the seasons across Yamal, following the migrations of their reindeer herds. The animals are everything: transport, food, clothing, and shelter. A Nenets camp rises in the form of tombs, conical tents of reindeer hide. Life here is stripped to its essentials. After brief stops, families dismantle their temporary homes, load everything onto sleds pulled by reindeer, and move on. There are no shortcuts, no backups, just knowledge passed down for generations and a stubborn resilience that makes the impossible ordinary. The Nenets don't live in the past. They live in the present more fully than most people ever do. On a map, Khanty-mansiysk looks remote, a dot in the endless sweep of Siberia. In reality, it's a place that shouldn't even exist, a modern city built in the middle of nowhere. It began as a small settlement of the Khanty-mansiysk people, indigenous reindeer herders. Then came the Soviets. In the 1960s, they struck oil. Everything changed. What was once a quiet village became the capital of Russia's black gold boom. Today, Khanty-mansiysk is wealthy and polished, almost surreal against the wilderness around it. A strange mix of frontier and luxury. Streets glow with neon in winter, while outside the city limits, hunters still track elk through the snow. Siberia hides landscapes that don't fit into the cliches of endless forest and frozen wasteland. The Putorana plateau is one of them. It lies far above the Arctic Circle, locked away from roads and cities. A place so remote that even most Russians have never seen it. Towering basalt plateaus stretch to the horizon, broken by deep canyons and hundreds of waterfalls. In fact, some geographers call it the land of 10,000 lakes and 1,000 waterfalls. The numbers aren't poetry, they're an understatement. About 250 million years ago, volcanoes here flooded Siberia with lava, layer upon layer, until the land rose into this massive basalt plateau. Later glaciers carved it, rivers sliced through it, and time left behind a labyrinth of gorges, cliffs, and steppes. There are no highways to the plateau. To get in, you fly by helicopter or trek for days through taiga and tundra. It's one of the last places where true wilderness doesn't just exist, it dominates. In the western Sayan Mountains, Ergaki National Park covers nearly 350,000 hectares of peaks, lakes, and deep taiga. It's often called Siberia's Yosemite. The comparison makes sense. Granite walls, glacial valleys, high-altitude meadows. The geology is similar as well. Like Yosemite, these mountains were carved by ancient glaciers that once filled the valleys. Lakes are everywhere. In total, there are more than 600 of them scattered through the park. Many sit at high altitude, fed by snowmelt, and remain icy cold even in July. Among Ergaki's peaks, Parabola is the most recognisable. The name says it all, a perfect granite arch, split into two vertical towers. What makes Parabola unique is the symmetry. Few natural formations look so deliberate, so designed. It rises to about 2,200 metres, sheer and smooth with cracks that climbers follow to the top. One of the park's strangest sights is the Hanging Stone. A giant boulder perched on a cliff ledge placed here by a massive glacier. Just outside Krasnoyarsk, something unexpected rises from the forest. Giant pillars, twisted and cracked. Locals call them the stolby, the Krasnoyarsk pillars. And they've been here long before Siberia had a name. Geologically, the monoliths are cousins of the Lena pillars. Ancient intrusions of syenite, magma that cooled underground 450 million years ago. What's left are towers and boulders. Some stand nearly 100 metres tall, worn smooth in places, jagged in others. Each rock has a name, a story: Okhotnichi for hunters, Tigrovi for tigers, Centralny for the central guardian. For more than a century, locals have been climbing them, often with no ropes, no gear, just hands and nerve. They call themselves Stolbis, and in Soviet times they built a whole underground culture here. Part sport, part rebellion. The authorities didn't always approve, but Stolby gave people a way to escape. The forest was freedom. The pillars were a challenge. And in Khakassia, another mysterious geological formation takes shape. Not the jagged verticality of Stolby, something older, softer, the Sunduki. The name means chess in Russian. Locals call them that for the box-like silhouettes that dot the horizon. Where Stolby are dramatic and vertical, Sunduki are horizontal, deliberate, layered. Granite and sandstone sit in plains and shelves. Tectonic pressures lifted the land, and millions of years of erosion carved the shapes we see today. Wind polished the surfaces, frost split layers, water seeped into cracks, smoothing edges. Archaeologists and shamans say that the Sunduki are ancient ritual sites, places where people came long before written history. Carvings, petroglyphs, and stone altars are scattered along the formations. Some say spirits inhabit the chess, invisible but perceptible. And pilgrims even today leave small offerings, coins, ribbons, out of respect or superstition. South of the Siberian plains, where the land begins to fold in on itself, the Altai mountains rear up. The spine of Asia, formed by the violent collision of tectonic plates. Snow crowns their ridges even in summer. This is where the Great Siberian Rivers are born, one of the least populated regions on Earth. The mountains don't unfold all at once. They reveal themselves slowly, curve by curve. And the best way to meet them is on the Chuya highway. A ribbon of asphalt that cuts through one of the most spectacular landscapes in Russia. For more than 600 kilometers, the road winds its way to the Mongolian border, linking villages and valleys. The Chuya River itself is constant company, rolling alongside the highway. Every turn shows something new. One moment, you're driving through open steppe. The next, you're entering a canyon. Then it opens again into alpine meadows. The peaks in the distance shine white year-round. And among the snowy summits hides the Aktru Glacier, a frozen river stretching from the ridges. It doesn't look alive at first. Ice is still, shimmering, solid. But listen, a low groan rumbles from deep within. Cracks form without warning. Crevasses gape like open mouths. The glacier is moving, as it has been for thousands of years. Aktru isn't about size. The glacier stretches about 8 kilometres, not enormous by global standards. But here, among the jagged Altai peaks, it dominates everything. In the valley below, a hidden crater of turquoise water is surrounded by evergreen pines, Geyser Lake. It doesn't erupt like Yellowstone. Instead, it bubbles almost imperceptibly. As if the earth is breathing slowly. The surface ripples in subtle waves, concentric circles forming and fading. The color of the lake is a shade of blue that doesn't exist in most of the world, intense and electric. The geology, however, is simple. Geyser Lake sits in a depression formed by tectonic shifts and volcanic activity. Hot water rises from deep below, meeting cold snowmelt, creating a dynamic system that bubbles and steams. The Chuya highway crosses the Altai, but we're going to leave tarmac behind for a while and follow a narrow gravel road that weaves through the hills. It climbs, passes small villages, and then suddenly drops into the heart of one of the wildest valleys in Siberia. The Krasnoyarsk Pass, a giant scar carved into the mountainside. A switchback road that falls nearly a kilometre from the plateau above. At the top, the view steals your breath. Cliffs falling away into air, the river snaking through the valley. Krasnoyarsk isn't polished or paved with convenience. 10 hairpin turns zigzag down the impossible slope, carved into loose rock and earth. Below lies the Chulishman Valley, a place so remote and untamed it feels like stepping into prehistory. Past riverside meadows and clusters of birch trees, the landscape takes a turn for the surreal. The Akurum stone mushrooms, one of the Altai's strangest creations, look almost man-made. Tall stalks of earth and stone, some 10-15 metres high. Capped with slabs that seem too heavy, too precarious to sit there for long. But they've been here for centuries, maybe thousands of years. Rain and wind carve the soft soil away, but the harder boulders protect the columns beneath, leaving these improbable shapes standing. The Akurum mushrooms aren't unique in form. Hoodoos exist in deserts from Utah to Cappadocia, but here, in the Altai, they feel different. The greenery of the valley, the icy river, the weight of Siberian silence make them less like curiosities and more like mysteries. Follow the Chulishman north, and the river slows, widens, and then suddenly becomes a sea. This is Telitskoye Lake, the largest lake in the Altai and one of the deepest in all of Siberia. Locals call it the Little Baikal, and indeed it feels endless. Nearly 80 kilometres long and more than 300 metres deep, Telitskoye lies like a mirror between mountain ridges. The water is dark, cold, and impossibly clear, fed by more than 70 rivers and streams. There's something ancient about the lake. Scientists say it formed at the end of the last ice age, but standing at the shore, history doesn't feel scientific. It feels mythic. The Altai people tell stories of spirits living in the depths, of guardians who watch from beneath the surface. If Telitskoye is the Altai's inland sea, vast, deep and mysterious, then Lake Chuya is its jewel. Smaller, hidden, harder to reach, but radiant in a way that catches you off guard. The colour doesn't look real. The lake shifts between milky blue and vivid green, depending on the mood of the sky. Yet there's no magic. The water is fed by glaciers, heavy with rock flour. Suspended in the water, it scatters light, turning the lake into a mirror of turquoise. At just over 7 kilometres long, Chuya isn't large, not compared to Telitskoye. But what it lacks in size, it makes up in intimacy. Above, the ridges of the Khatun Range frame the horizon, the white peaks that never lose their snow. And at its heart rises Mount Belukha, the highest mountain in Siberia, the crown of the Altai, and for many, something more than just a peak. Belukha is massive. Twin summits, both over 4,500 metres, are linked by a razor ridge. The glaciers spill down its sides, rivers of ice that feed the Katun River below, the great artery of the Altai. Legends say Belukha is the gateway to Shambhala, a hidden paradise, a realm of wisdom and peace. Shamans believe the mountain is a centre of spiritual energy, a place where heaven and earth connect. After the glaciers and white summits of Belukha, the Altai flips the script. Suddenly the snow and ice give way to fire and dust. We descend into the Kizil-Chin Valley and it feels like you've landed on another planet. Locals just call it Altai Mars, and you can see why. The hills roll out in waves of red, orange, yellow, even purple. Layers of clay and sandstone catch the light differently depending on the hour, like some kind of mirage. But this is an illusion. It's geology stripped bare. Over 300 million years, shifting seas and tectonic upheavals left these multicoloured bands exposed. Each shade is a story. Iron giving the reds, manganese the purples, sulfates the yellows. Compared to the lush valleys and snowbound ranges of the Altai, Kizil-Chin feels like another world entirely. And maybe that's the point. The Altai is full of contrasts: glaciers and turquoise lakes, sacred peaks and Martian hills. Further north, the steppe reveals something even stranger: a sea of pink. Lake Baikal, one of the largest salt lakes in Siberia. From a distance it looks ordinary enough, but as you walk closer, the water blushes into shades of rose and crimson. The colour comes from tiny microorganisms, algae and brine shrimp, thriving in the saline water. Yet Baikal isn't just a spectacle, it's practical. For centuries, locals have harvested salt crystals here, scraping them from the lake bed. A narrow gauge track runs right across the lake, cutting through the water. It was laid down in the 1940s during the Soviet push to industrialize Siberia. Its purpose was blunt: move salt. Freight cars still trundle along it today, carrying loads from the salt flats straight to the processing plants. In Siberia, most cities feel improvised, built fast to serve an industry. But Tobolsk is different. Here, history lingers in stone. It's the oldest Russian settlement beyond the Urals, founded in 1587, where conquest and exile collided on the edge of an unknown world. The city stands high above the Irtysh River, split in two. Down below, the lower town, wooden houses, crooked streets, the sprawl of everyday life. And above it, on the bluff, the Tobolsk Kremlin, the only stone Kremlin in all of Siberia. White walls and onion domes gleam against the dark taiga. In its centre is the Sophia Assumption Cathedral, built in the 1680s, the first stone church in Siberia. From Tobolsk, Russia pushed further east, mapping rivers, founding forts, building the skeleton of a frontier that seemed endless. But this remote outpost wasn't just empire, it was also exile. Decembrists, dissidents, all ended up here, banished beyond Moscow's reach. Even the Romanov family passed through, held here in 1917, before their transfer to Ekaterinburg, a stop on the way to tragedy. Compared to Tobolsk's 4 centuries, Novosibirsk is young. Founded in 1893, it didn't even exist when the empire was still looking east. And yet, in just over a century, it's grown into the largest city in Siberia, the unofficial capital of the region. The reason? Rails and rivers. Novosibirsk was born at a crossing point on the Trans-Siberian Railway, where engineers needed a bridge over the mighty Ob River. The settlement that sprouted here was first called Novonikolaevsk, a workers' camp more than a city. But railroads change everything. Trains brought people, supplies, and ambition, and by the 20th century, this upstart was outpacing the old Siberian strongholds. Today, Novosibirsk feels like Siberia turned inside out. Their industry, culture, and science stacked into one sprawling metropolis of nearly 1.6 million people. It's easy to forget, walking these streets, that the city is younger than the Eiffel Tower. But that's its story: speed, reinvention, scale. And while Novosibirsk is the capital of Siberia, Yekaterinburg is the frontier, the line where Europe and Asia meet. The city was founded in 1723, named after Catherine I, wife of Peter the Great. The Urals are rich in iron and copper, and Yekaterinburg became a centre for mining and smelting. By the 19th century, it was one of Russia's busiest trade hubs, not Moscow or St. Petersburg, but it mattered, and still does. And then came the moment that forever tied Yekaterinburg to Russian history. In 1918, the last Tsar, Nicholas II, and his family were executed here. The Romanovs' end was brutal and final, a dynasty collapsing in a basement. Today, on that spot, the church on the blood rises with golden domes. But Yekaterinburg isn't frozen in tragedy. During the Soviet years, it was renamed Sverdlovsk and transformed into an industrial zone. The city grew fast and it never stopped. Today, Yekaterinburg is Russia's fourth largest metropolis, with about 1.5 million people. The skyline mixes Soviet concrete with glass towers, modern skyscrapers with ornate wooden facades. Yekaterinburg is neither fully European nor fully Siberian. It's both. Beyond the rocky spine of the Ural Mountains, the land shifts. Siberia fades, Asia gives way to Europe. Endless forests are replaced with farmlands, and with them comes another Russia, different in mood and story. Not harsher, not softer, just other. But that's not part of this journey. A new tale awaits us. Thanks for watching. See you soon.